They are bracing, I'm sure, for a suspension. And for all those Browns fans I've seen on Twitter who say, no, he served a suspension last year, that wasn't a suspension. He was on the active roster. Now, they made him inactive for every game, but that's not a suspension. He was paid his $10 million. I believe he will be suspended. Ben Roethlisberger and Ezekiel Elliott, similar situations. They both got originally 6 games each. I think he will be suspended, Mike, and I think they are probably bracing for that. How quickly do you think the NFL will decide on what his suspension will be?
Well, the NFL does not like to do anything until it has to. And I see 3 potential outcomes here. And there could be more, but these are the 3 approaches the NFL could take. 1, the NFL could take action now and suspend him now, notwithstanding the 22 pending cases. He gets his punishment now based upon what the NFL knows, and the 22 cases go forward, and whatever happens with the 22 cases, the NFL has concluded the matter. Suspension, served, and everything else is between Deshaun Watson and the civil justice system. That's one way to handle it. The other way to handle it is to not do anything at all until the 22 cases are over. And you could argue that the fair thing to do is wait and see what happens, because at the end of the day, Charean, if the 22 cases ultimately are won, each and every one of them, if they're ultimately won by Deshaun Watson and he wasn't charged with any crime, what has he done wrong? What should he be suspended for? What rules did he violate of common society if he ultimately has no criminal or civil responsibility? That's at the other extreme. They can wait until the end. And if he settles, then you suspend him. If he doesn't, if he wins, then who knows what you do. But you wait until the very end to make a decision. The other thing they can do is they can give him a preliminary suspension, 6 games now, and reserve the right to do more later based upon what happens with the 22 cases. I have a weird feeling that could be the winner, that could be the way to go.
Yeah.
However, here's what I think the NFL wants to avoid, and this is why they do paid leave. This is the. So I guess there's 4 categories, because this is the other one that I think could happen. And if I talk long enough, I'll come up with a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th. I think there's a chance the NFL could say in late July, because the NFL doesn't like to tip its hand until it has to. It doesn't like to act until it has to. The NFL could say that you're going on paid leave until these cases are resolved. And then after they're resolved, we reserve the right to punish you based upon the outcome of the cases. So you're not playing, and you're going to continue to get paid. And in the NFL's eyes, guys getting paid to not play is not punishment. We went through that back in 2014. Ray Rice, Greg Hardy, Adrian Peterson, those 3 controversies all coming at about the same time caused the NFL to hatch this idea that, you know what, we're not comfortable with the idea of a player who is facing serious charges who hasn't been proven guilty. This isn't about the presumption of innocence. This is just, it's not a good look for us to have that guy playing football and have our broadcast partners have to say, Deshaun Watson, who has 22 pending civil lawsuits against him, drops back to pass. They don't want that. They don't think it's punishment to not let a guy play football because he still gets paid. And the point I made at the time, and I still believe to this day, for most people, it's not punishment if they get a paid vacation because they hate their job. Their job sucks. But for football players, they want to play football. So it is punishment to keep them from playing. But that's one thing to keep an eye on. If he doesn't settle these cases, the NFL could say, you're not playing until these cases are over. And I'm not sure that Watson's camp really appreciates that risk.
Well, and at that point, Mike, doesn't he settle the cases if he goes on the commissioner's exempt list? Wouldn't he just say, okay, let's settle this and get this out of the way?
Here's the problem. Tony Busby, if that happens, puts not just his thumb on the scale, he puts both thumbs, the other 8 fingers, the palms of his hands, his elbows, his shoulders, and the rest of his body on the scale. Because that's what happens when you get into civil litigation. People say, well, that's not how it should be. When you settle a case, it should be an approximation of what that case actually would be worth, what a jury could be. No. Every factor drives the value of a settlement. And if you've got a quarterback who is prevented from playing until these cases are resolved, all of a sudden, those cases are much more expensive to settle. It's one of the reasons why the cases didn't get settled back at the trade deadline. Tony Busby caught wind of why Deshaun Watson was trying to settle these cases. That if he settles them all, he gets a trade and he goes and plays football. And I think that's what caused just enough of the plaintiffs to say, nah, we're not ready to do this. Or if we do it, we want a lot more than what you're willing to offer, even if we said we would have taken that amount before we realized what's happening here. That's why if the NFL does it, it puts him in a very, very difficult situation. I'm not passing judgment. I'm just saying that's the way it is. Right, wrong doesn't matter here. When you have that lawsuit and the other side is motivated to make that lawsuit go away, and you know it's like anything else, motivated buyer, reluctant seller, and you got somebody who really wants to make this happen, good business means you squeeze them for everything it's worth. That's capitalism, that's negotiation, and that is very, very prevalent in the legal profession.
I'll be very interested when that schedule comes out, Mike, because I'm sure the NFL has an idea of what it's going to do, right? So when that schedule comes out, are they going to punish the Browns? Or are they going to have them playing, say, the Bengals, and I don't even know who else is on their schedule outside the division, but the first 6 games really loaded with high-quality teams as an additional punishment for the team? That'll be interesting to watch.
Peter King and I argued about that last week when it looked like Deshaun Watson was going to go to the NFC South. And there's an article we have on PFT from 2010. Why am I blanking on the name of the guy who makes the schedule? Howard Katz was on with Chris Mad Dog Russo. Yeah. And the Steelers' first primetime game was the week after Ben Roethlisberger's 6-game suspension ended. And Russo was very skeptical about that they did that on purpose, that Howard Katz knew that the suspension was coming and factored that in, and Katz said, that's not relevant to me. Peter seems to think it will be relevant, but we'll see. But the Browns know going in, it's not about 2022. This is a 10-year play. I think they take whatever comes their way this year. But the worst-case scenario is he doesn't play at all this year, and then he gets a suspension next year if he's stubborn about settling these cases. Bottom line is I think it'd be very smart to settle the case.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.